Good evening to everybody. As you can see from the clock, it's just gone 7:30. And this evening it got dark round about 7 o'clock. So the evenings are drawing in, and we're coming up now towards Samhain. And Samhain, of course, is the great Celtic festival of the new year, because the first day of Samhain, which is the 1st of November, begins the Celtic New Year. You can just hear the clock ticking. Now, Samhain, of course, is a time to honour all of those who have passed. And it's a very liminal time. Within the Celtic calendar, the eve of the great festivals of Imach and Lunasa and Bealtaine and Samhain are all liminal times. And a liminal time is when that which separates us from the other world is at its weakest, its most fragile, its most permeable. So the ancients believed it was a very special time when we could invite those loved ones who had passed to come and be with us. And that's why each of these great festivals was celebrated with a feast. So on the eve of Samhain, it is a time for a wonderful feast. But of course, it's not just that immensely important festival. It is the last day of the year. So it's a wonderful time. It's a time to honour the ancients. And for some bizarre reason, and I think it must be to do with religion, when these festivals have been taken away from Ireland and placed in countries across the world, they have morphed into something else, something that the main religion of that country would have found abhorrent. You see, this pagan festival would be abhorrent. So it was turned into something brutal and dark and unimaginably horrific. And so Samhain was morphed into Halloween. Now again, there is a distinct link between the word Halloween, the name Halloween, and indeed the Christian church, because these festivals were purloined by the new religion and were taken to be called All Hallows Eve. So thus the name Halloween, Hallow Eve, Halloween. So when you celebrate Halloween, you are in fact, if you go back in time, you are celebrating an ancient, very, very ancient Celtic pagan festival. However, and this is where we can evolve ourselves away from the constraints that have bound us. We can look upon the ancient Celtic celebrations as important cultural festivals. So to celebrate a cultural festival brings in the elements of the ancients and our link to them. And it's very important to keep those links alive and healthy. Because you know the old saying, you've got to know where you've come from to know where you're going to. And to be able to place yourself within this dimension. And this dimension carries no sense whatsoever unless we put it into context. So, on this quiet evening, I sit and contemplate all that was, all that is, and try to look a little bit into the future, into the year that's coming. And so the nights are drawing in. Samhain itself means summer's end. And of course the ancients divided the year first of all into two very distinct festivals. Summer's end and the beginning of summer, or summer's end and I would say winter's end, but no, I think it's more to do with the light. And it is something that I keep referring back to, the importance of the light in all of these festivals. So you had the beginning of the light and the end of the light half of the year and the dark half of the year. And so you had Bealtaine, which is the light half of the year, the beginning of the light. And then Samhain, which is the beginning of the dark, the ending of the light. It's all about light. And it's no coincidence, I suppose, that when you cross the globe and you go to, say, India, and you have this incredible festival of Diwali. And Diwali is actually a festival of light. And that happens around the same time. So there are lots of cross-cultural connections. It's interesting, isn't it? So you see now the importance of placing ourselves somewhere within this long, long, long history. In fact, it takes us out of history, because history itself is a recording of patriarchal events, if you like, within the context of empire and royalty and battles and destruction and power and control. But when you go right back, you go right back past history itself and into, I suppose, what we would refer to as the great myths, the myths and legends, then you're coming into something much more interesting. And not just this cyclical history repeats itself, more battles, more kings, more death, more destruction, more empires rising and empires falling. You see a bigger picture. And I think that's what's missing from today. The ability to see the bigger picture. Blessings to you all. Blessings to you all. And just as a little reminder, I will be reading the last chapter of the book, A Cottage in 3 Acres, on Patreon this week. And links to the Bealtaine Cottage bookshop can be found below each and every video. Blessings to you all, my friends, and have a lovely evening. Blessings.